Hello, everybody, and welcome to week 4 of the Academy of Design Technology 3D modeling course. My name is David, and we're about to hit our midterm now. So we're 4 weeks in, so that means we're going to use all our skills to develop one big assignment that we're going to render to show off our modeling skills. And we're going to call this assignment The Room. So basically, in week 1, we've learned about the basics and introduction to 3D Studio Max. In week 2, we started inorganics. In week 3, we continued inorganics, going into more complicated details from low poly to high poly, and learning how to make sure we have a lot of control over our meshes. So this week is focusing on scene development. So what we're doing is we're going to build out a basic part of a scene, and we're going to elaborate it with details that you will be modeling yourself as our final midterm assignment. So you have all week on this. Um, don't feel like you can't email me. Please email me if you need a lesson on how to do an object that you're trying to do. Some of you will do more complicated objects. Some of you will do simple. But remember, this is more to test yourself right now. This is a very creative assignment before we get on to organics. Organics is going to be extremely tough. So I want you to take your time with inorganics right now. We're finishing off inorganics with the scene development. And I want you to take your time and really put some detail into what you're doing and make sure you look up lots of reference images of rooms. Okay, so I'm going to send this documentation with you, a very simple document called Week 4 Midterm Assignment in the Room. Model a room that has been inhabited by someone. It can be you, a cartoon character, a movie character, etc. So for instance, if I want to model a room that belonged to Bruce Wayne, Batman, chances are I would leave a really messy bed because he would never make his bed. I'd put maybe some weights on the ground because he always weight trains. I'd have a computer in his room, or maybe even a switch that would lead to a tunnel to the Batcave or something like that. Um, and batarangs in the wall, or a dartboard or something like that would be funny. So those are kind of things that I would do, and those would be the at least 3 unique objects to that character. So for Bruce Wayne, it would be the batarangs in the dartboard. Um, the switch that would lead to the Batcave, and the weights that would make sure he's weight training, or maybe even the cowl, right? Would be sitting in that room. So if you're doing Marty McFly, you can have the hoverboard, you can have the magazine, and you can have I don't know, the Nike shoes, right? So have at least one nightstand, one bed, and one dresser. Those are like the standard bedroom setups. So I'd like you to have at least those, plus the 3 objects. So you got 3 base objects and 3 unique objects that need to be done for the room to make it look really lived in. And I think that would be more than enough for this week, to be honest, to get that all done. And make it look lived in. Things like having a messy bed, there's some clothes on the ground, a window's open, there's a computer desk that's messy, maybe with some cans on it, etc. Those kind of things make a room look lived in. Remember, this is more a testament to your skill. I'll just show you how to basically start modeling a room really quick, and then we're going to take it apart to put in a window, and then make room for detail, block out detail, and stuff like that. But I'll send you this document, and we'll get started. So, if I want to build a room, especially if it's just a contained room, very easily I start with a box. Now, you can make a box in any viewport. I'll just use the top right here, like that. So the first thing you might want to do if you're doing a real world calculation is go to customize unit setups and make sure this is set to meters. Okay, that way we know our room is 2 meters by 4 meters by 3.5 meters, and if I need to change that in any way, I can. It's tall enough, the width is enough, and the length is enough for me to work with, that this would be considered my room. Now for you, you may want a longer, bigger room, or maybe even a smaller room. If it's like Harry Potter's room, obviously it'd be really tiny. If it's some king's room, then obviously it'd be huge, huge, huge. So basically you would have a box. Pretty simple, pretty easy. I would convert this to an edit poly. Now the one thing I don't need for this is I don't need a roof. We're not going to worry about a roof right now. We're just going to worry about having the 4 walls and the floor. And we have that. We have these 4 walls and the floor. So what I'm going to start doing is I'm going to start actually detaching these. Okay, I'm going to detach them. I'm going to grab each one of these walls, and I'm going to detach these walls one by one. And detach them by the direction too. So if I see front, if this is the south wall, so you can either type south or wall, front or back. So I'm wall front, detach wall back, left, and detach wall right. So then we go to our scene manager here, and I'm going to, we'll call this one floor. We don't have to detach it, it's the last object in there. I call it floor. I'm going to grab all 4 walls, wall right, wall left, wall front, wall back, and I'm going to put them into a new layer. Call this layer walls. And I'm going to make a new layer for the floor and call it floor. That way we can always hide and unhide everything in our scene here. So that way you can see now that I have the wall front. I can actually look inside of my model. Then take a look at that. So, oops. Yeah, edge face is on. I'm going to switch it to performance mode so I can at least work with some grays here. So, okay, perfect. So I have my 4 walls and my room. So what you can do is every room needs a door, right? Now, chances are my door would be on the front wall. So I would leave the front wall open. And you should measure your door out how you want it to be. So an easy way to create a door is actually 3D Studio Max has doors built inside of it. If you look here, there's doors. There's a pivot door, sliding door, and a bifold door. Chances are you'd probably want a pivot door. Something like that. And then you can even open it a bit. And you can change the number of panels, horizontal and vertical panels. And it actually cuts the polygons correctly. So if you want to, make a fancier door, you can do that. You can change the size of these panels too. There's a lot of little parameters to change around. So just play around until you feel like you got what you need. Basically, the normal door thickness is usually enough. So I can make the door a little thinner. I can make this a little thinner. How offset the door is. I can make it a flip swing. So it flips backwards. Make it 2 doors. Like that. You can flip the hinge. So left or right. So there's a lot of little things you can just customize with the door itself right there. So I'm just going to pop it out there. So don't forget that this wall, obviously it doesn't have room for this door. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab it and we're going to swift loop. So I'm going to just grab this polygon. I'm going to go around here and go edit swift loop. And that way I can just grab the polygon here and delete that. And you see we have this. So we're never going to really render it from out here. So what we need to do is flip these polygons as well, right? They're being rendered from this side, but really I want it rendered from this side, right? So now you see we got that nice door. We got a little bit of a frame sticking out of here, which is nice. If I give it a quick render, that looks good already, right? So when you add in these new details, we can either keep these in a group, and so like wall front now has a door with it, right? So what I want to do ideally is in walls, I'll create a new layer and call this wall front. So this is a layer instead of just an object, and I will move the actual wall itself into that layer and that pivot door into that layer. So now, whenever I turn off this little layer wall front inside walls, that covers the whole wall. You can add a thickness to the walls if you really want. I'm not. You don't. It's not going to be rendered too much for that purpose, so I'm not really too concerned. But so the same thing applies to wall back, right? So we have our back wall here. I'm going to turn it to standard mode. And I'm going to flip all of these polygons. Polygon flip. Don't forget to flip all these polygons. It could have been something we done at the start. My apologies for that. There you go. So now we want to do a window here. Now 3D Studio Max also has windows. Windows right here. So we can actually create windows. It can actually create panels. It can open. So you can make all sorts of different windows. So hopefully the room itself won't take you that long to make, because we can just use windows like this. You know, we have thickness, we have width. Now, for the inside of these windows, obviously we'll have to make them transparent. That'll be okay. So if I'll show you how to do that, basically we would create a window how we want. And we change the width, we change the height to however we want, the thickness if we have a thickness. You know, the glazing doesn't need a thickness, so that's all right. So we'd have this, perfect. Convert to edit poly. So what I would do is I would grab these polygons. And I can either choose to delete these polygons completely, because we don't really need glass too much. Or what I can do is I can detach them. And then once they're a detached object, you see I have this right here. I can right click on object properties and turn the visibility right here in rendering control down to, let's say, 0.2. Same thing we did for our alien dome. You know, now we got a nice looking window and we can pop that in. I'll go to my top view here, rotate it properly. I'll grab both of these. Oops. Like this. And I'll minimize it and squish it until it's correct. Something like that. You know, windows are pretty small. They're not as big as most people think they are. So if we just take a little squish. And I'll put it near my bed, will probably be in this corner, so I think it'll be there. Obviously, if you work from references for your characters or for your own bedroom or anything like that, please try and make it accurate. And there you go. There you go. Now we have an outside window. Obviously, the glass shouldn't be yellow. It should be white. So I just go here and change the color to like a white. There you go. So now we have a door and we have a window. And don't forget the other walls as well. I need to flip these to make sure that the colors on the inside. The black side means that it's probably not going to be rendered by the camera. You can see if I render this. We don't have it. We have that issue on this wall here. Flip. You want to make it easier to see. Obviously, we can just click 8 on our keyboard or go to rendering environment, 8 on your keyboard, and change the global color around the room itself. I'm going to change it to a gray, and now you can see I get a much better look on my scene. And the reason why we separate these walls is so that when we put a render, we don't see these walls sort of interact. But currently the view, like for instance, like this door here needs to go away if I want to see a good inside of the door. So I'll take away wall front. Okay. Now I get a good look of that. So don't forget we need to move these in the correct categories. So I need to change wall front has currently the window in it that I created. Remember, active layer is blue, so we need to switch our layers and create new layers. So I need to create a layer for wall back. Let's put this back here. So I'm going to go to my wall front layer and grab my window that was created. I'm going to put it in wall back. There you go. And wall back. Try and keep your scene really organized. This will help you. And then we start, blocking our scene. So basically, when you want to block it out, I'm going to create a new layer called blockout, or block, or layout, or reference, or anything like that. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to start laying around objects in my room. I'm going to hide wall front. I'm going to start laying out actual boxes just to lay out my scene. I make sure it's the active layer, make sure the little blue stack is there, and then I put in my bed. Make sure to measure your bed out. The average human being is 1.7 meters, so maybe his bed is just slightly bigger than his height. There you go. So that would be the bed. Good, we have the bed. So I'm going to lay out. Remember that there needs to be pillows. So step one, if you really want to, is to send me the reference file, with just these basics, and ask me, does it look okay? Does everything look fine? I can help you out with that without a problem. So I'm going to make this nightstand here, the tiny nightstand. Maybe a little taller though, something like that. And if you have time, you can block out detail that even if you're not going to model it, you can just have the blocks there. So if I don't have time, or if I do have extra time, I'll model a little alarm clock, but for now I'll just keep a little block there. Just adding that little extra detail just in the scene itself. Just adds that little bit of life, So I'm going to block this out. I'm just going to convert this to an edit, whatever. It doesn't really matter. Edit, mesh, edit, poly. I'm just making a little lamp. Little lamp like there. So I have my nightstand, I have my bed, and now I need my dresser. So I'll pop my dresser right here. Like that. That's cool. So I have a big room. There's still lots of room here. So I may add if you want to fill in a scene really quick without adding too much detail, just add like a table or something. Like a computer desk. A really simple computer desk, I should say. Remember to try and get height measurements correct. So if you can go to you can go to IKEA or something like that online and just get the height of a desk and the width of a desk, and you'll have a very accurate measurements. So if we have this, there we go. You got a tiny table here. If you want to make a computer desks are a little thinner. And I'm just going to make the computer tower. Something small like that. I'm going to work from the top view here. Just going to block out a keyboard really quick, a monitor, and a mouse. And then I go to my perspective view. And I'll drag all this stuff to the desk. Maybe a printer or something on the side. Looks like there needs to be something here. So you can see it blocked in. This all looks really good, and there's we have lots of room here so that a character can walk in. Make sure you don't need to clutter everything, because you don't need to put it so the character doesn't look like he doesn't live here. He's got to live here, right? So now that I've done my blocking in for my scene, and gave it the three basic objects: the bed, the nightstand, and the dresser, and I added in my extra detail here, which for me is this computer. I can start going in and detailing these objects. So it didn't even take me that long, about 20 minutes, just to lay out the basic boxes of the scene, and they're all in the blockout. So what I can do is I can grab the entire blockout section by clicking on blockout, right-clicking on it, and going select child nodes. That will select everything in the blockout scene. I then go to object properties. I'm going to turn off renderable so that they don't render. I'm going to turn off Show Frozen in Gray. And then I'm going to push Alt X, make them transparent, and then freeze them. So now you see I got a cool, nice blocking looking scene where I can actually toss in my high detail objects. Now that's one way of doing it, so that I can start putting in the high detailed objects on a different layer and actually name it objects and whatnot. The other way of doing it is simply just taking these actual block objects themselves. I'll undo for a second. Taking these and just working with them. So I see a dresser here. Obviously, I need to add like a drawers. I don't need to add the inside of the drawers unless you really want to go in that far detail. But what I can do is I can just convert to edit poly, and since it's a simple dresser, I can literally just go edit Swift loop and start cutting in my drawers. Let's see, that space, that, and then I'll cut in the inside. Like this. And then I'll grab these polygons. Then I'll need to add the handles. Maybe I need to add the top of this dresser. Remember to push F3 and F4 on your keyboard to go between wireframe mode and edge face mode. I'm going to extrude. By local normals. If you want to go add more detail, I can always do an inset here. Maybe I have a really fancy dresser. And I can do a major inset, so I'm going to just go crazy. Something like this. So the reason why I do that the double inset thing is I'm going to grab these vertexes here and I'm going to curve them up as a little handle. Like that. And then I turn off this and turn on rendering. Oops. Oh yeah, sorry, I turned off all rendering on all the blockouts. I gotta take them out. There you go. So now you can see I got a dresser, and if I add my ambient occlusion or anything like that, then I can actually render this out, and everything will be fine and dandy for the dresser, and I can move on to my other objects. So this is it's as simple as that. You can either work from the blockout objects, just work from the blocks, since this, especially the dresser and the nightstand themselves, just use the same kind of drawer mechanics and stuff like that. It's easy to create these drawer fronts. Especially if they never open. You can make them open if you want to add that extra detail. Like I said, don't try and cheat yourself. If you think you can add that extra detail, please do. But for the primary objects, the bed, the dresser, and the nightstand, you can keep those a little bit lower on the detail end and just work on the high-end stuff that makes your character's room more lively. So that is the midterm project for this week. Start creating a room, add the dresser, nightstand, and bed, and go into high detail. This is low detail right now. Take your time, go into high detail. To go into high detail, what I would do next is I'd probably replace this bed entirely, but then make a blanket for it. To make a blanket, I would just make a plane like this. Excuse me, plane. Grab it, convert it to edit poly. Grab these edges. I'm gonna go here. Grab these edges. Grab those edges there. And an easy way to make a blanket is see that we have this now, and I can always turbo smooth it to create that blanket look. Now this means I need to change the vertex plots. Remember, I need to add more vertexes. I can swift loop around here. You see adding those swift loops around the edges. already gave it much better shape, and the rest would just be up to me, moving these polygons to make sure it's in the appropriate location. Great. And then after you've done your turbo smooth, right? See, we have our nice blanket, looks good. We need to add a shell so the blanket looks like it has a thickness to it. So we can add an outer shell, inner shell, that kind of thing. And now we have a thick blanket that looks like it definitely takes over the bed. Now, after you add the shell again, I'd probably add a turbo smooth one more time. So I would only turbo smooth this out once to level 1. I'd add the shell, and then I would turbo smooth it again a couple more levels. This way it adds a lot more detail. And if I go back to vertex mode, I can still play around and add in, the detail where it needs to be. So I want this bed to be pretty messy. So what I can do is afterwards, when I'm done playing around with this detail here, it's definitely like a pretty convincing bed setup. Adding more detail will only help it look better every time. So don't worry about that. But remember that blankets tend to move a lot around the middle parts too. Right now we don't have a lot of polygons to play around with when it comes to the center of the bed. So what I would do is probably collapse this. And I would then grab a polygon, use soft selection. And I would just move some of these up and down, just to make it a little bit messy. And then I would make a even softer selection of this. And I just give it that lumpy look. Pull the blanket down a little bit. Oh. Maybe pulled a little too much here. But you can see just by pulling it like this, we're creating those edge loops that are going downward, so it makes it look like it's actually curving downwards, and then it's like squishing at certain points, which is good for a bed to look lived in. So if I do this over and over and over again, you see we're adding these little wrinkles. So we're making it look like a very lived-in blanket type situation here. Very messy, which is good, because messy is kind of how most people keep their bedrooms, and it adds that sort of convincing look. So for this scene, polygon count doesn't really matter too much. We're allowed to play in high polygons, but just make sure the flow works. Like all these squares look like they're in the appropriate location. We're following the premise of edge flow here, so the more squished these polygons are together would mean the more curved that part of the bed is. And you can see we're getting that nice look. So if you were going to do folded clothing, it'd pretty much be identical to this kind of situation, where I would just use smooth selection and then start moving stuff like that. And don't forget that, some parts of the bed go a little bit lower, some a little bit higher. Same thing applies to the sides of the beds. That definitely looks a lot more convincing than the flat square we once had. It actually looks like a blanket. This room looks lived in. So take your time, like I said, take your time, add these details in, play around, soft selection, inset, extrudes. I just started off with squares, and now I'm starting to get a room developed already. This is going to be a carpet eventually. This will be my computer setup, and this will be my nightstand. And, if this is Batman's room, like I said, I need that dartboard, I need a batarang, that kind of stuff. It's all about modeling. All about modeling. This whole course is all about modeling. We're going to get the texture working eventually after this, so make sure that this model looks good, because we're going to come back to this and texture the whole thing. So that means you got to spend a lot of time on this model, and not only this week, but take a lot of time this week, try and finish off as best as possible, and then we'll come back to this and take a look at it. Overall, though, I think you guys have been doing a great job so far. Absolutely fantastic. The gun models were great. I think you can do a lot with this. I'm letting you be creative, letting you pick your characters, as long as whatever fits in the room matches the character. Even a jail cell is considered a room, right? So if your character's in jail, I'd put them in jail. If it's like the Batcave, if it's just Batman's room, if it belongs to you yourself, or if it belongs to I don't know, movie character like Django or somebody living in a shed, if it belongs to anything else. Be creative, be open. Think about your favorite characters and where they would live and what they would do, where they would sleep at night, really, and try and make a room for them. If your character is a constant boxer, maybe he just sleeps in the gym. He has a small room in the gym, that kind of stuff. So be creative, ask questions. Don't be afraid to email me anytime if you need something, a tutorial or anything like that, and I'll try and get to it. But good luck with this, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Take care.